Well, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you all for joining us for this week's Lunchtime Chats with Tlingit Haida. This week's topic is our Tribal Child Support Unit. My name is Richard Peterson. My Tlingit name is Chachia Ish. I'm the president of Tlingit Haida. As always, very excited to have you join us so that we can share information about one of our very important programs here at the tribe. Also, we welcome your questions. So please, if you're watching, please type in your questions. And at the end, after our conversation, we'll take those questions. If we run out of time and aren't able to get to your questions, we'll be sure to answer in the comment section afterwards. Also, if you're watching, be sure to hit like and you'll be entered in to win a few door prizes with us. So I'd like to turn over and introduce our guests now. Go ahead and start with you, Janae.
Okay, thank you, President Peterson. My name is Janae Franklet, and I'm the manager of the Tribal Child Support Unit. I was born and raised here in Juno. My Tlingit name, sorry, I always stumble over it. My Tlingit name is Gaithteen. I'm Yenyedi Eagle Wolf, and in just a few weeks, I'm going to be celebrating my 10-year anniversary with the tribe, and all of those years have been with the Child Support Unit.
Great, thanks, Janae. Amanda?
Hi, my name is Amanda Blackoat. I have been with Tlingit Haida for 20 years. 7 of those years have been started off in Tanf, so I've been with Tribal Child Support for 13 years. I was born down in Arizona, and I'm of the Navajo tribe in the Tcsu clan.
And Brent.
Hi everyone, my name is Brent Mulvaney. I've been working as the Tribal Child Support Attorney here since early December of last year, and so I'm pretty new, but definitely thank you for having me here, President Peterson, and thank you all for watching.
So Brent, give a little background on yourself. Where do you come from?
Certainly. So I was born in Honolulu, Hawaii, which is where most of my family is from. And on my mother's side, which is the side of my family that I'm closest to, we're Hawaiian, Chinese, and Japanese.
Nice. Yeah. Well, we're glad you're here with us. We'll go ahead and dive right in then, and I'll start just having a conversation with all of you. Maybe Janae, can you kind of tell us when the Tribal Child Support Unit first opened its doors?
Yes, we opened our doors in March of 2007 as a Tribal 4D child support program. So we are currently in our lucky number 13 year of service.
Great. Can you provide us an overview of the unit?
Absolutely. So we provide services to all of Southeast Alaska villages and communities, with the exception of Metlakatla. And we are currently the only child support agency in Southeast at this point. We do accept all applications of child support services, and if we ourselves can't serve that application, then we'll make the appropriate referrals to wherever it need be, another state or child support agency, tribal child support agency. Most of our applications come in from the Tanf program, and we do see some that come in from our employment and training or our child care department. And there are a few that come in as direct applications from clients.
Great. So what service does the Tribal Child Support Unit provide?
We, as I said, we accept all applications, and once we review those applications and we assess what the family needs are, and we can make referrals as need to. We also provide locates, and that tends to be, once we take that case on, that's kind of our information gathering in terms of getting additional information on parents or things that are going to help us move the case along, like their assets. We also provide paternity establishments, And once that paternity has been established for that child, we can then assist that family with getting that child enrolled with the tribe. We also establish child support orders, and we enforce those orders, which includes tracking, collecting, and distribution of payments. And we also do modifications.
Great. So what exactly is child support? And how does the tribal child support unit work?
So child support is something when there is one or both parents are no longer in the household with their child, and it is that parent or parents' financial obligation to support that child.
Okay. So about how many child support cases does the tribal child support unit manage year to year?
We have just over 1,300 that we are actively working, and this last year we were able to establish 94 new cases.
Wow. Brent, does the tribal court hear child support cases?
Yes, that's right. And I can briefly go over the types of hearings that are held in our cases. In cases where paternity has not been established, like Janae was saying, TCSU will petition the tribal court to determine whether an alleged father is the parent of a child in a particular case. This is crucial to TCSU's administration of child support for two reasons. First, paternity or parentage is the basis for both the financial and the emotional aspects of any child support obligation. And secondly, it helps both parents and children understand their familial and cultural connections. The tribal court also holds hearings to review TCSU's petitions to establish child support orders and its motions or requests to modify those orders once they have been established. These hearings provide TCSU with an opportunity to present its recommendation as to how the tribal code and the tribal child support schedule ought to apply to a particular case. And they also provide the parties with opportunities to be heard, to directly participate in their cases, and to potentially influence the related decisions of the court.
Great. So can you explain what your role as the child support attorney is?
Sure. As the child support attorney, I represent the tribal child support unit in its interactions with the tribal court, as well as state courts and state agencies. I also work with TCSU staff on the implementation and development of law and policies that will best serve the interests of tribal citizens and in particular tribal children. In each aspect of my role, I strive to ensure that TCSU's administration of child support is consistent with the laws and overarching policies of the tribe, as well as TCSU's internal policies and institutional ethics. In other words, I always try to do what is just and what is fair to our clients. And for me, those concepts are profoundly influenced by the experience and wisdom of my coworkers and the needs of our clients.
So your client, is it always the child?
So my client is TCSU in particular.
But if I may interject, but our mission is always when we get into a tough case and we're trying to decide what to do, we always resort back to what's in the best interest of the child. So that's our underlying current whenever we get to tough decisions on cases. We resort to that statement as to what is the best interest of the child. So even though we may not be here specifically for the TCSU children, that is our motto.
Great. Thank you.
Agreed. Thank you.
So Brent, how does the tribal statute Title 10, which is our family responsibility, help guide the tribal court process for paternity establishment and child support orders?
Right, so Title 10 of the code was developed to guide the actions of both TCSU and the tribal court in all matters related to child support. Additional guidance is also provided in the tribal child support schedule, which is, there's reference to that, that document that's in Title 10. And that schedule pertains primarily to the calculation of child support. While these guidelines address many of the issues that could potentially affect their cases, there might not be any set of laws that address all of the nuances that could affect the particular case. So there are many times where TCSU or the court may have to interpret how the law ought to apply to a particular case with a particular set of facts. Title 10 addresses these situations by providing the policies that guide the actions of TCSU and the court in all matters related to child support. And this kind of gets back to your last question. So the code states that when interpreting these provisions, those are the provisions in the code, TCSU and the tribal court shall provide for the best welfare of the child, the ability of a parent to provide financial support, and Title 10 also directs us to respect and account for the traditional values and customs of the tribe and its communities. For me, this means that if the law does not provide a clear answer, I need to be considerate of our clients and the wisdom and experience that they and my coworkers have to offer. It also means that I should avoid making decisions that are based on experiences that might not relate to our clients, their needs, or their communities.
Great. So does the tribe represent either the custodial or non-custodial parent in tribal court?
Sure. So the short answer to that question is no. TCSU takes on the role of a neutral third party in each of its cases. Its actions are based entirely on the laws of the tribe and those policies that I mentioned earlier, and how they apply to information that is available to TCSU as it's making its decisions. Frequently, applicable laws and policies align with the interests of one or both of the parties, but it's important to note that this is never intentional and it is never a product of our preference for one party over another.
Great. So can you walk us through the process of a child support case?
Sure, I can try and give you a general overview. So TCSU generally opens a case when a custodial party applies for services. Sometimes this means that the parents will apply directly to TCSU for services, but in several cases, parents might apply for something like temporary aid for needy families or Tanf, because that process involves the assignment of the applicant's right to receive child support to the tribe. One of the first steps in reviewing an application is determining whether or not the applicant is eligible to receive services. And in making this determination, TCSU is primarily concerned with whether or not the child in a case is eligible for tribal citizenship. If applicants are not eligible to receive services through TCSU, the agency can, upon request, help those applicants find programs through which they may be able to receive services. After reviewing an application and determining that an applicant is eligible to receive services, TCSU will then open a child support case that will be assigned to a case specialist. The case specialist will assist in establishing a child support order through the tribal court and enforcing that order. In some cases, this process may start with the establishment of paternity through genetic testing or an acknowledgement of parentage that is recognized by the court. If paternity has been established, TCSU will work with the tribal court to determine an appropriate level of support and establish a child support order. When possible, TCSU will recommend to the court that it adopt a calculation of child support that is based on a percentage of the actual income of the non-custodial parent. If relevant information is not available to TCSU, TCSU's recommendation will most likely be based on an imputation or a determination of the parent's earning potential, which can be based on a variety of factors, including federal minimum wage or that parent's actual or potential ability to work. Once a child support order is established throughout the life of the case, parties may also request modifications of child support obligations as their circumstances change. Each time the tribal court is asked to establish or modify a support obligation, the parties and myself will have an opportunity to present related concerns to the court that may affect its determinations. Lastly, I'll mention that the involvement of outside agencies or courts tends to alter the administration of child support in many ways that I probably don't necessarily have time to go into. But hopefully this summary can give those who are listening a better idea as to how our cases progress.
Great. You know, as you all know, we have nearly 32,000 tribal citizens worldwide. And one of the questions I get a lot is if our child support orders that are issued through our tribal court, are they valid in other states or jurisdictions?
Right. So I think the short answer to that question is yes. Child support orders issued by the tribal court are valid and they are recognized as being valid in other jurisdictions. But I think it's important for everyone to understand how this has changed over time. So first I want to acknowledge that it's a fundamental aspect of the sovereignty of a tribe and its government to regulate domestic relations amongst its members. Part of what this means is that choosing to establish and enforce rules concerning how children within a tribe ought to be supported is something that a tribal government could always do for its people. And exercising that right is not reliant on its recognition by any other government. And any other government that respects the sovereignty of a tribe would not question the validity of the rules that a tribe adopts for its own members or the ways in which those rules are implemented. This idea, however, is not necessarily reflected in the actions of the federal government, which did not recognize the right of a tribe to establish its own child support enforcement program until 1996. Around the same time, amendments were made to federal laws to recognize the validity of tribal child support orders, and each state has been required to adopt these laws in order to qualify for federal child support enforcement funds. In spite of this, the state of Alaska claimed that it was not required to recognize the validity of tribal child support orders. And this didn't really change until the Supreme Court of the state of Alaska issued an opinion in 2016 recognizing that Tlingit Haida's jurisdiction over child support had more to do with its relationship with its citizens than it did with the tribe's legal relationship to the land in which those citizens may be located. So again, the short answer is yes, but I think it took a really long time for other jurisdictions to understand that these orders are valid.
Right. And of course, it seems like we always have to prove it in through lawsuits, which we've been victorious in. So, and that was really the work of Tribal Child Support Unit advocating and pushing those lawsuits. So I think that's a good thing. So in the process of gathering of information on a case, the tribe finds out that there are other child support orders already in existence. How does the tribe handle multiple child support orders?
So I guess the short answer to that question is that it depends. Under federal law, the order with priority in time is usually controlling. And this generally means that the child support order that was established first is the one that must be enforced and that any other subsequent orders are invalid. This tends not to be an issue because TCSU staff are extremely diligent in determining whether or not someone applying for services already has a child support order. And if one of our staff does determine that there is a pre-existing order, what will most likely happen is that I'll file a petition to have the tribal court recognize that foreign support order so that TCSU may enforce it. Every once in a while, 2 child support orders may be enacted within a short span of time, or 2 agencies will be working on the same case at the same time. In those situations, the validity of an order may depend on which court or agency was first asked to establish the order or administer the case respectively. When these situations occur, TCSU will always try to act in the best interests of the case as a whole and the parties involved, but the ultimate outcome is going to differ from case to case.
Awesome. Can I state something according to that? So in a couple of instances, we've had cases where a child support order was established and it was not necessarily understood by the clients. it is probably because it was a past process. And so they went to another agency and they got another CSO, not realizing that their first CSO is actually the one that should be followed, and did not disclose that, or maybe forgot about it and did not notify the new place that they were applying to that they had a previous CSO. And so there's a conflict of jurisdiction that can come into play, and they may misunderstand why all of a sudden this new child support order, the new child support order that they just got is invalid because of the previously established child support order. So my only recommendation out there to clients and tribal citizens is, if you have a child support order, keep it close so that you know that it's there. And then if you ever have to go to court, bring a copy of it to the court that you're attending so that they can have record of that and know that too.
I think just adding on to that, if clients are going to different courts or different agencies to handle a matter that is related to child support, and we already have a case open for them, it's really important that they communicate to that court or that agency that we're working on their case and we're in the process of establishing an order, or maybe we already have one in place.
Great. How does child support and custody relate in general?
So I think the most general answer is that a tribe's ability to determine child support and to determine child custody, those are both rooted in the same aspect of tribal sovereignty, which is the inherent right of a tribe to adopt rules that affect the relations of its citizens. This means that the source of the validity of related decisions is the same, but I'm guessing that is probably more general than what you were looking for. So I can briefly explain how those two concepts are connected in the context of TCSU's interactions with the tribal courts. Insofar as the custody of a child has been established by a court, the custody order will have a profound effect on the calculation of a support obligation. For example, under the tribal child support schedule, if one parent has full custody of a child, the other parent may have to pay 100% of the assigned child support obligation, regardless of the placement of the child, unless the tribal court decides to deviate from that rule. There is a breaking point where both parties have at least 30% custody of a child, and the parent who is obligated to provide support will be ordered to pay an amount of support that is proportional to the comparative incomes of the parties and the parent's level of custody. But yeah, until that breaking point is met and it's in a court order, the parent paying support is going to have to pay 100% of the obligation, and there isn't going to be an offset for that. Now, when there's no applicable custody order, there's greater room for flexibility. For example, under the schedule, TCSU could pursue a modification of a support obligation at the request of a party if there is a change in the placement of the child. And it doesn't meet that same threshold that I was describing earlier when there's a custody order in place.
Right. Janae, I'm curious, does TCSU perform paternity testing?
Yes, we do. All of our case specialists are certified to perform the DNA testing. The only caveat that we have is we have to have an order by our tribal court. It's not something that somebody can come in and just request. It has to be backed up with an order. And we can serve our clients that live within Juno and outside of Juno. If they live outside of the Juno area, we work with our DNA testing lab, and we let them know where the clients are, and they arrange for the appointments at the closest available medical office. And then for those clients that are here in Juno, typically we can do the testing here at the office, but with the coronavirus pandemic, right now we work with our DNA testing lab, and we get those arrangements made with Bartlett Regional, and that just ensures that everybody is safe and all processes are protected.
Great. Amanda, how does the Tribal Child Support Unit work with the state and other tribal 4D agencies?
Federal regulations require states and tribes to work together towards the common goal of ensuring both parents provide financial support to their children. So because of this, there are forms that are specific, that are uniform forms that you can send to any state and they will understand what you are asking for. And vice versa, if they sent us those specific forms out requesting a service for us to perform for them, then we are obligated to also respond and provide those services. The state of Alaska is the one Child Support Services Division, CSSD, we work with the most. They transfer cases to us, and we have to help reconcile the financial history of the non-custodial parent to ensure it's accurate and assist with other case processing. We want to make sure it's accurate because we don't want any non-custodial parent to be charged twice. Yeah, so, and most cases are transferred typically when a custodial parent applies for temporary assistance for needy families, for Tanf. So that all plays into it. States and other 4D agencies will work together. So let's say we have a genetic order for paternity testing and we're having a hard time finding the other parent in order to perform that, and they live in another state. We can utilize that other state to help make sure that that non-custodial parent or absent parent can be genetically tested. We often can use other states for unemployment garnishments to help establish or modify child support orders and establish paternity. Locate absent parents and to collect and distribute child support payments. Custodial and non-custodial parents can have more than one open case with more than one 4D agency. Some people don't always understand that. For example, the PFD, we have to go through Child Support Services Division, CSSD, in order to ask to garnish the PFD. So a lot of times they will get notice from the state of Alaska all of a sudden saying, your case is open with this. And usually it should state in there because Tcsu has asked for it. The Tribal Child Support Unit has asked to garnish your PFD. So in cases like that, you have two open cases. State of Alaska will then close their case after the PFD is garnished. And they usually send out notices, but sometimes there's some confusion as to why there might be one case open in two different states. So hopefully that can answer some of those questions.
You bet, that was great. So Amanda, at the end of 2018, the Tribal Child Support Unit reached a huge benchmark. Can you talk about this milestone and what it means to your department and to the families?
Sure. So Tcsu collected in 2008, over 10 years ago, $31,785. So it's always been our goal to increase our collections, and we typically have increased our collections by at least 15% each year, except for fiscal year 2017, in which you saw a decrease in collections as a result of the direct reduction to the Alaska Permanent Fund dividend in 2017. Plus at that time, that's when our state budget crisis started. So you can see the pitfalls of our economy a lot of times by that. We haven't continued to increase our collections primarily thanks to having increased staff. I think that has helped, even though we have continued this recession in Alaska, that we have been able to bounce back from that and continue to increase collections since then. Since fiscal year 2013, over 60% of the collections have been dispersed to custodial families, with remaining or less than about 40% or less going to Tlingit Haida Tanf program as reimbursement for the families that receive that financial support. This success is shared by all family members including paying parents. Our children win when paying parents can share in the success of meeting the needs of their children. So.
Great. How you mentioned TANF. How does Tribal Child Support Unit work with other departments such as TANF?
So both departments have the common goal of assisting families to strive towards self-sufficiency. When custodial parents or third-party custodians, these are like grandmas and aunts and uncles taking care of kids, apply for TANF benefits, they are required to assign or give their child support rights to TANF for each month of TANF benefit is issued. If current support is collected for the current month in which TANF is received, the custodial parent will receive a pass-through payment of up to $50. Now, let me just reiterate something. If we do not receive a payment that is, say the payment is $10, then you will only receive a $10 pass-through payment. So it's not automatic that you get a $50 pass-through payment. It's whether or not the paying parent actually makes payments. Child support funds are then collected for TANF and are rolled back into the TANF program to help TANF families.
Great. So Janae, what does it mean to assign child support to TANF?
So this is actually really closely related to what Amanda was just talking about. When TANF applicants apply for and receive benefits, if there is a parent that's out of the household, they are required to fill out an absent parent form. And that is then forwarded to us and initiates a case with the child support department. And what that means is, as they're receiving their TANF benefits, that non-custodial parent, when they are engaged in their case and they are paying their child support, that payment comes into the tribe and goes to reimburse the TANF program for what that TANF benefit has already paid out to the family. That TANF benefit is, a portion of it is considered child support. So just talking in round numbers, a custodial parent may receive a $500 benefit, and that benefit may go towards electricity and food and clothing, whatever that parent deems necessary. And then when that child support payment comes in, it's not for that full $500 benefit, it's only for a portion of. And that non-custodial parent, the portion that they pay, that's calculated just based on their income. It's not based off of what the TANF benefit is. I think I addressed a little bit more than.
It's okay. So Amanda, if a non-custodial parent lives in Alaska and owes child support, will Tribal Child Support Unit garnish their PFD or any other type of dividend they may receive?
So I did touch on the PFD. Yes, we will garnish the PFD, but we will also garnish tax returns if available. We will garnish insurance settlements. We can garnish native dividends. There is, but PFD is our biggest source of garnishment each year. A lot of times that is the only payment some families get each year is the PFD garnishment for child support. So yeah, that's the biggest.
Okay. So Janae, how can clients help to make sure there is minimal lag time on receiving child support payments?
So the best way to minimize that lag time is to make sure that you're providing the most complete and accurate information to us as you're filling out the application and providing any supporting documents. Like if we can get birth certificates, that always helps. If it's a matter of there's a birth certificate and a dad's not listed, making sure that all of those supporting documents are there in terms of a paternity witness statement, making sure that we're getting the best information that we can as far as contact information, that just helps us minimize how much research we have to do in order to get the case up and running and continue to move that case through the court process. The better our information is, the better we can work the case.
Gotcha. So Amanda, where do the child support payments come from?
So other than the PFD, the majority of our other payments come from income withholding orders. And that is when you garnish from an employer of the non-custodial parent. Most payments are submitted to the employers, and the employers are required by law to deduct child support from the non-custodial parent's wages. Payments that are received, any payment, we try to process. Payments come from income withholding orders, and that is when payments are processed within 3 days of receipt. That's what we try to adhere to. On occasion, if a question comes up regarding the case, it can delay that, but within 3 days of receipt, that's our focus, that's our goal, is to get it all out. Electronic funds transfer, EFT, is also available, and that helps cut down on lost mail. We used to have, recently, I would say within the last 2 years, we started getting electronic fund transfers from CSSD, from the state of Alaska, and that helped cut down on lost mail, because we would get checks that would be a month late in the mail being lost, and by being able to do this has cut down on that alone, and that has been, I think, a real time saver all around, just in stress and not knowing if something's coming through, and especially for custodial parents that are expecting it. President Peterson, I think you're on mute.
No, I
anymore.
must have lagged out or something. I'm sorry. How often does Tribal Child Support Unit send child support payments out?
Sometimes in a case you can sort of see a development of pattern. Hey, they must get paid every 2 weeks because we get our child support payment about every 2 weeks, or we get it once a month. But just so everybody understands, when we get a payment, we try to process it within 3 days, if not sooner. My goal personally is 24 hours, that the next day it can go out to those families. My mom was a single parent, and so child support was always, it played a large part. And so I always think of that when I'm trying to make sure that those payments are processed in a timely manner.
Great. So Amanda, in partnership with the state of Alaska's Child Support Service Division, Tribal Child Support Unit was able to implement an electronic funds transfer process to receive the child support funds electronically. Can you talk about how this has improved processes? I think you did a little bit. But.
I did a little bit. The one thing maybe I can add to that is that by doing that transfer, we save not only in time, but the money that it takes to post them and mail them. It really has become more efficient, both money-wise and time-wise.
Great. So Janae, with the arrival of COVID-19, there's been a few changes to Tribal Child Support Unit's work environment and processes to continue to meet the needs of parents and children served. Can you talk about some of these changes?
Sure. In anticipating, some of the challenges that the clients may be experiencing, we did designate certain staff to stay in the office. And, as Amanda said, with these changes, we've tried to minimize how much lag time there is with the payment processing. And so we've got 3 staff that are in the office at all times during business hours, not at all times, to process payments. And something else that we did for clients is we did a new form to address hardships, to address unemployment, because obviously with this COVID, some people have been laid off. You know, there's various circumstances that they may be going through a hardship. We've also partnered with our tribe's 477 ENT training departments, and we've been able to offer webinars to get clients different trainings, so when the communities do open back up, they are more prepared to reopen the workforce. Let's see, we also, Tribal Court was able to establish an electronic filing system, which helped streamline the process of being able to do timely filings. And then that also helped with making sure everybody is safe and minimizing contact. And as I addressed earlier too, in terms of establishing paternity, we've able to collaborate with Bartlett Regional to make sure that our DNA testing process can continue to happen. As our offices are closed, people can see that their appointments are through Bartlett Regional.
Great. So Amanda, what is the Think About It teen outreach program?
So Think About It Teen Outreach Program actually started with the state of Alaska Child Support CSSD. And when they came to Juno, we asked to be a part of that so that we could see what they presented. And we had done that, I think, for about 2 sessions with them. And with the budget cuts, they couldn't travel. And so then we asked to be able to present it here in Southeast, and we have presented it in Juno and in Haines communities. Not every community wants it, but the main point about Think About It is to present and to encourage students to think about the life choices that they make now and how the potential child support issues they may encounter in the future based on their decisions. It's a combination of an engaging presentation, but it's interactive with student activities, and it does have a video with real life scenarios that focus on the child support aspect of it. Educating Alaska's youth about their financial responsibilities and obligations when having a child, I think, is important, because there's a lot of information out there. And even as I'm always learning stuff, so I can only imagine how difficult it would be to have a child at a very young age and having to navigate through child support.
Right.
So if you want, I can go through some of the statistics, facts that we present.
That would be great.
Okay. So 3 out of 9 females in the United States get pregnant at least once by the age of 20. Actually, that has changed to 1 out of 5 females. That's been, that actually was just corrected. So, U.S. teen pregnancy rate remains substantially higher than in other Western industrialized nations. So we're the highest for teen pregnancy. Even though the numbers have been coming down as a nation, we're still the highest. 39.6% of all births are to unwed parents. That includes non-teen parents too, parents that aren't teens. 89% of teenage relationships that have children do not last. So that means out of 89% of those relationships, 89% are probably dealing with child support at some aspect, because they're not still with the father of their child or the mother of their child. Only 7% of all child support is collected in the United States. So that's a terrible statistic. It's awful, but I think it's slowly changing. That is probably a little bit old, but I know that as a nation, we could do better. A female teen who has a child before the age of 20 has an increased chance, 18% increased chance of having another baby before she reaches 20. That always threw me, but I actually have a cousin who met that statistic. So you're more likely to have a second child if you have a child before the age of 20 to have a second one before the age of 20. And only about 50% of mothers graduate with a diploma. And then the children of teenage mothers are more likely to have, they don't achieve as well in school and they have a higher rate of dropout than if they had waited. Between 1991 and 2015, the teen birth rate dropped 64%. So like I said, it is coming down, but we're still the highest out of industrialized Western nations. The birth rate of American Indian and Alaska Native teens is 32.9%. So out of the teens that are having babies, 32.9% of those teens are American Indian or Alaska Native teens. And so we're the highest. In 2019, Alaska ranked 15th out of for the most teen pregnancies out of, it had still decreased from 2018 by 25%, but we're still ranked 15th, the most teen pregnancies in the nation. And it costs about $330,000 to raise a child to the age of 18 in Alaska. And what else can I tell you? So while parents do not live together and can to support and raise successful, healthy children, preventing the need for child support services in the first place is better for families and more cost-effective for the public. Child support caseloads are driven by the increasing number of children born to unmarried parents, a trend that reached a record in 2009 of 41% of all births were to unwed parents. And among births to teen mothers, 87% were to unmarried parents. We just try to encourage educating young people about the role of child support, about responsible healthy choices, the financial and legal implications of having child support having a child out of wedlock, and learning to take care of them and give them some ideas of what that entails. So I think I've talked too much. So.
Well, there's a lot of information. Thank you, Amanda.
Mm-hmm.
Janae, what are some of Tribal Child Support Unit's accomplishments from last year?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, the lights on my thing aren't working and I wasn't sure if it got unplugged. I would hate to have technical difficulties. So this last year, I do want to actually read these. You'll have to pardon me for reading this because I think these statistics reflect just how much we've been doing in this last year. We increased our active caseload up to 1,325. We also distributed $1,176,479.72 in child support. When we reached a benchmark of collecting over 1 million, we've done that for a second year in a row now. The case specialists, they typically manage a caseload of 250 to 500 cases, and that continues to grow. We've also increased our collections by 17.75%, which has surpassed the goal that we set for ourselves. So I think this next year we'll be a little bit more aggressive about that. We closed 95 cases this last year, and that may be for multiple reasons: children aging out of the system, It's possible parents getting back together and family dynamics changing. Amanda's program, the Think About It program, that was presented to 232 high school students in Juno this past year. We also did a presentation at the Northwest Tribal Child Support Conference in Quinault, Washington. And then we also did a presentation to our own 477 staff here at Tlingit Haida. This last year, we also submitted 191 PFD garnishments to the state. And in this last year, we were able to establish paternity for 7 children. We excluded 2 as alleged fathers, and we closed 2 cases. Paternity has not been established for 64 children. 18 were not eligible due to case closure. 6 were hard to establish because of information difficulties. And 40 were eligible for paternity establishment. We also did. Oh, sorry, I was hearing some feedback. Of the eligible cases, 19 have been referred to other states. 12 are currently pending, and 6 are in the process with tribal court. And 3 cases have concluded with paternity in the tribal court process.
So, sounds like it was a busy year and a successful year for the department. What are some of your goals for this coming year, for this year?
This year, of course, we have the challenges with COVID, but I think I always tell my staff that we have a staff full of rock stars, and we've got a lot of creativity. We have been working with the 477 departments, which is our client services departments at Tlingit Haida, to be able to improve our referral system within Tlingit Haida. And we also want to take a look at how we can improve referrals to other resources within Juno or the outlying communities. We just want to be able to provide more efficient and effective wraparound services for our families. And as the environment does change and the community is able to open back up, it's one of my goals to be able to reestablish relationships with key organizations like Lemon Creek Correctional Center, Gastineau Human Services, AWARE. We also have the reentry and recovery program to just help improve those clients that are going to be reentering, and we want them to have the most successful experience as possible. And I know my biggest focus is, child support tends to be met with, it's not very comfortable for people. It's not necessarily a very happy subject. And my focus is all about education and information sharing. I think that the more information we can provide to our clients, and we can educate them about our department and the process of child support, they can make better and more informed decisions about their families.
Great. Well, that wraps up our questions. Sam, do we have any questions from our audience?
Yes, we do. Thank you, President Peterson. Thank you, everyone from TCSU. Our first question is from Kinsey Andra Martin, and it is, does State of Alaska Child Support Office's relocation to Anchorage affect TSU, and does it affect it negatively?
I'll go ahead and answer that if that's okay. Has it affected negatively? I think for those parents that have only CSSD cases, I think it did affect negatively. We did have a non-custodial parent who's not able to use the mail to make payments, and so would go into the office and make cash payments. And when that office closed, what we worked with that parent in order to open up a case just so that we can send those payments that he makes in cash to the state of Alaska. That's the only reason that case is open. And we don't want to hinder any case from getting a payment to helping a child. So it didn't necessarily fall underneath a regular case scenario per se, but it did affect those families negatively. We are able to assist to a certain extent in helping people answer questions in regards to CSSD cases. So we will try to kind of pick up where they're not able to.
Awesome. Our next question is from Jesse Wright. Does child support go after unemployment benefits from the non-custodial parent?
Would you like me to go ahead and address that? We do. We send a request to the state of Alaska to garnish those unemployment benefits, and they will then send the money to the tribe so we can disperse those payments.
I'm going to add something in there. So like stated before, we have 1,300 cases, and we have, I think, 9 staff and like 4 caseworkers that work cases. So you divide that up, that's a lot of cases per caseworker. So what I encourage each custodial parent to do is, if you know something or you come across information about the non-custodial parent working, or all of a sudden you realize they have shares in a native dividend, notify your caseworker and check up on that, because that will help. It's your case. You're the only one with like your case. So by making sure that you check up on it, that helps make sure that we don't oversee anything. And so I strongly encourage, if you know that they're on unemployment, call us up, call your caseworker up and let them know that. Or if you know that they're working somewhere, we only can do the best that we can with the resources that we have. But if you know something sooner than we do, by all means, please let us know.
And one thing I'll add is that I think the same advice applies to the non-custodial parent in our cases. And that kind of goes back to what Janae was saying about making sure that our clients are engaged, they're educated about our processes, that they're involved in their cases. If the non-custodial parent has information that could potentially affect their case or their support obligation, if they don't tell us, we can't act on it. And sometimes, you know, if you look at the child support schedule, there are circumstances that, you know, might require modification in favor of a non-custodial parent. So it's not just custodial parents need to be coming in and being active in their cases. Non-custodial parents should do the same, especially if they have objections to what we're doing. So I know that there was a question posed earlier about what clients can do to make sure that their cases are moving along. And one thing is definitely, if there's something you think that we're doing wrong, you let us know. And that doesn't mean that we are actually doing something wrong, but it helps us prepare and possibly respond to your needs. Thank you.
Really good.
Our next question is from Lindsay Louise Demert Gray. What if the parent is deceased and paternity is not possible?
I think that's a really tough question to answer, especially without knowing more information about that particular situation. But I believe this has come up before, and TCSU is more than willing to try and work with our clients and the court to find some sort of solution so that paternity can be established. I'm not sure what the outcome of that work will be, because that's speculative, but we would certainly try to help our clients as much as we possibly can. And if we need to do something a little bit differently than what's been done in past cases, we'll try and find that solution.
Awesome. Thank you. Our next question is from Karina Charlton. She's asking, can I go through this system if I live in South Carolina? Myself and my kids are enrolled members.
Yes, you can always apply. And we will, like previously said, we review to see what the best course of action is for each case. So absolutely, we have people that live in other states that utilize our services.
Awesome, thank you. And then John and Lisa Young were asking, can the Think About It campaign be done in other towns besides Juno?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So what would that take, Amanda? Is that a request from the community, or?
I will present anywhere anybody wants me to. I'm very passionate about this. I think the more information, education about not just the personal choices, but how financially responsible parents are held to be accountable, and to get them involved early, I think is important. And so I will pretty much go anywhere. So they're welcome to contact us and let us know where they want us to present and who the audience would be.
Excellent.
It could be going to South Carolina.
Our last question, could firewood delivered and subsistence foods be given to be given credit against child support?
Yeah, so the tribal code and the child support schedule permits the non-custodial parent to make contributions to a household through what we call in-kind support payments. But there's a few requirements. First of all, those cannot be used when somebody is actively receiving Tanf benefits. And those sorts of payments can only go towards a current support obligation. And the way it's set up in the schedule is that the parties would have to go into court, present this arrangement to the magistrate judge, and there would have to be an order approving this to happen, and setting out how these in-kind services or goods, what their value would be in terms of satisfying a support obligation.
Pam, there was another question that Jody sent us.
Oh, I apologize.
Actually, two more.
This question is from Doug Gray. When a mother moves out of state with her daughter, do paternal grandparents have any visitation rights or get help for visitation?
That sounds more of a custody settlement than a child support question. So,
right, that's what I was going to say, is that that's more of a custody matter, which would be decided in the party's custody case. And TCSU is not directly involved in those cases, even though it substantially impacts the way we administer child support.
and there's another one from Kinsey.
Oh, I'm sorry. Our other question from Kinsey is, in the single parent homes, is there or are there support groups or programs to help these young families to still work on having a healthy family for their children's sake?
I can answer that. I think through our tribal family youth services, sorry, so many acronyms, we do have Motherhood is Sacred, Fatherhood is Sacred, and other groups like that that help teach parenting skills and support skills. So that, I think we are have reached both the end of time and all the questions. I want to thank our panel. They're, as you can tell, they really know their stuff and really proud of the work they do. They have a very hardworking team and have met some really strong benchmarks, and they're really, you know, the message that I get when I talk to them isn't just the, you know, any kind of punitive, you know, try to get people type thing. It's trying to provide that support for the children and keep the families connected. And I think that's really important. So, and I did just get a message from one of our folks in TFYS, and there's a nurturing parenting program. So that goes to that last question. Thanks for that. Anyways, again, I want to thank the panelists. Did a fantastic job. Thank you for our audience. Great questions. Appreciate you all tuning in each week. We look forward to seeing you next week. And at the very last, we'll announce our door prizes. We have 2 winners. Andrea Hancock won a David Boxley Formline t-shirt, and Veronica Dalton won a David Boxley Formline sweatshirt. If you message us, the Tlingit Haida page with your addresses, we'll get those out to you. Again, thank you all very much. Be well, be safe, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you, President Peterson.
Thank you all.